Basically, you create your experience through your beliefs about yourself and the nature of reality. Another way to understand this is to realize that you create your experiences through your expectations. Your feeling tones are your emotional attitudes toward yourself and life in general, and these generally govern the large areas of experience. They give the overall emotional coloration that characterizes what happens to you, period. You are what happens to you. Your emotional feelings are often transitory, but beneath there are certain qualities of feeling uniquely your own that are like deep musical chords. While your day-to-day feelings may rise or fall, these characteristic feeling tones lie beneath. Sometimes they rise to the surface, but in great long rhythms. You cannot call these negative or positive. They are instead tones of your being. They represent the most inner portion of your experience. This does not mean that they are hidden from you or are meant to be. It simply means that they represent the core from which you form your experience. If you have become afraid of emotion or the expression of feeling, or if you have been taught that the inner self is no more than a repository of uncivilized impulses, then you may have the habit of denying this deep rhythm. You may try to operate as if it did not exist, or even try to refute it. But it represents your deepest, most creative impulses. To fight against it is like trying to swim upstream against a strong current. These feeling tones, then, pervade your being. They are the form your spirit takes when combined with flesh. From them, from their core, your flesh arises. Everything that you experience has consciousness, and each consciousness is endowed with its own feeling tone. There is great cooperation involved in the formation of the earth as you think of it. And so the individual living structures of the planet rise up from the feeling tone within each atom and molecule. Your flesh springs about you in response to these inner chords of your being. And the trees, rocks, seas, and mountains spring up as the body of the earth from the deep inner chords within the atoms and molecules, which are also living. Because of the creative cooperation that exists, the miracle of physical materialization is performed so smoothly and automatically that consciously you are not aware of your part in it. The feeling tone, then, is the motion and fiber, the timber, the portion of your energy devoted to your physical experience. Now it flows into what you are as a physical being and materializes you in the world of seasons, space, flesh, and time. Its source, however, is quite independent of the world that you know. Once you learn to get the feeling of your own inner tone, then you are aware of its power, strength, and durability, and you can, to some extent, ride with it into deeper realities of experience. The incredible emotional richness and variety and splendor of physical experience is the material reflection of this inner feeling tone. It pervades the events in your life, the overall inner direction, the quality of perception. It fills up and illuminates the individual aspects of your life and largely determines the persuasive, subjective climate in which you dwell. It is the essence of yourself. Its sweeps are broad in range. However, it does not determine, for example, specific events. It paints the colors in the large landscape of your experience. It is the feeling of yourself, inexhaustible. In other terms, it represents the expression of yourself in pure energy, from which your individuality rises, and you of you, the you of you, unmistakably give an identity that is never duplicated. This energy comes from the core of being. from all that is, and represents the source of never-ending vitality. It is being in you. As such, all of the energy and power of being is focused and reflected through you in the direction of your three-dimensional existence. While your feeling tone is uniquely yours, still it is expressed in a certain fashion that is shared by all consciousness focused in physical reality. So in those terms, you spring from the earth as all the other creatures and natural living structures. You are, while physical, a portion of nature, therefore not apart from it. Trees and rocks possess their own consciousness and also share a gestate consciousness, even as the living portions of your body. The cells and organs have their own awareness and a gestate one. So the race of man also has individual consciousness and a gestate or mass consciousness, of which you individually are hardly aware. The mass race consciousness, in its terms, possesses an identity. You are a portion of that identity while still being unique, individual, and independent. You are confined only to the extent that you have chosen physical reality, and so placed yourself within its context of experience. While physical, you follow physical laws or assumptions. These form the framework for corporeal expression. Within this framework, you have full freedom to create your experience, your personal life in all of its aspects, the living picture of the world. Your personal life and to some extent, your individual living experience help create the world as it is known in your time. In this book, we will be speaking about your own subjective world and your part in the creation of events, both private and shared. It is important that before we continue, that you realize that consciousness is within all physical phenomena. However, it is vital that you realize your position within nature. Nature is created from within. The personal life that you know rises up from within you, yet it is given. Period. Since you are a part of being, then in a certain fashion, you give yourself the life that is being lived through you. You make your own reality. There is no other rule. Knowing this is the secret of creativity. I have spoken of you, yet this must not be confused with the you that you often think you are, the ego alone. For the ego is only a portion of you. It is that expert part of your personality that deals directly with the contents of your conscious mind and is concerned most directly with the material portions of your experience. The ego is a very specialized portion of your greater identity. It is a portion of you that arises to deal directly with the life that the larger you is living. The ego can feel cut off, lonely, and frightened, however, if the conscious mind lets the ego run away with it. The ego and the conscious mind are not the same thing. The ego is composed of various portions of the personality. It is a combination of characteristics, ever-changing. That art in unitary fashion. The portion of the personality that deals most directly with the world. The conscious mind is an excellent perceiving attribute, a function that belongs to inner awareness, but in this case is turned outward toward the world of events. Through the conscious mind, the soul looks outward. Left alone, it perceives clearly. In certain terms, the ego is the eye through which the conscious mind perceives, or the focus through which it views physical reality. But the conscious mind automatically changes its focus throughout life. The ego, while appearing the same to itself, ever changes. It is only when the conscious mind becomes rigid in its direction, or allows the ego to take on some of its own functions, that difficulties arise. Then the ego allows the conscious mind to work in certain directions and blocks it in awareness in others. And so it is from your larger identity that you form the reality that you know. It is up to you to do this with joy and vigor, clearing your conscious mind so that the deeper knowledge of your greater identity can form joyous expressions in the world of the flesh. End of the chapter, end of dictation. Now, this book will enable others to help themselves and will reach a far greater audience and help more people than Rupert could meet alone, or than I can help through individual sessions. Those who request help should be put on a list to make sure they know of this book. Rupert does not need to feel he must have individual sessions, then, for people who must work through this alone. And now I bid you a fond good evening. If you have questions, you may ask them. I paused, considering the late hour, then asked Seth for his opinion about the recent visit of a young scientist from a western state. Jane, both as Seth and as herself, had made a good start at tuning in on certain technical information. I felt, however, that a great amount of time and effort would be needed on a regular basis over a period of years, probably, for Jane to make full use of her abilities in such specialized endeavors. Now, Seth, the effect of the visit was good, particularly on Rupert. We will get to his scientific questions. For Rupert's confidence, I wanted this book decently begun. Other sessions may take over from dictation now and then, but the main project will be the book. The flood material will be used as an example in the book later on, when natural disasters are discussed. So you will have that material, and others may use it and understand it. And now, a fond good evening. And then I'm going to skip the little in-between talk here and start with the next session. Good evening. Good evening, Seth. We will resume dictation. Chapter 2, Reality and Personal Beliefs. You form the fabric of your experience through your own beliefs and expectations. These personal ideas about yourself and the nature of reality will affect your thoughts and emotions. You take your beliefs about reality as truth and often do not question them. They seem self-explanatory. They appear in your mind as statements of fact, far too obvious for examination. Therefore, they are accepted without question too often. They are not recognized as beliefs about reality, but are instead considered characteristics of reality itself. Frequently, such ideas appear indisputable, so a part of you that it does not occur to you to speculate about their validity. They become invisible assumptions, but they nevertheless color and form your personal experience. Some people, for example, do not question their religious beliefs, but accept them as fact. Others find it comparatively easy to recognize such inner assumptions when they appear in a religious context, but are quite blind to them in other areas. It is far simpler to recognize your own beliefs in regard to religion, politics, or similar subjects than it is to pinpoint your deepest beliefs about yourself and who and what you are, particularly in relationship with your own life. Many individuals are completely blind to their own beliefs about themselves and the nature of reality. Your own conscious thoughts will give you excellent clues. Often, you will find yourself refusing to accept certain thoughts that come into your mind because they conflict with other usually accepted ideas. Your conscious mind is always trying to give you a clear picture, but you often allow preconceived ideas to block out this intelligence. It has been fashionable to blame the subconscious for personality problems and difficulties, the idea being that early events, charged and mysterious, lodged there. In this country, several generations grew up believing that the subconscious portions of the personality were unreliable, filled with negative energy, and contained only locked up, unpleasant episodes best forgotten. They grew up believing that the conscious mind was relatively powerless, that adult experience was set in the days of infancy. These concepts themselves set up artificial divisions. People learned that they should not be aware of subconscious material. The doors to the inner self were to be shut tight. Only lengthy psychoanalysis could or should open them. The normal individual felt that he had best leave such areas alone. So in cutting off these portions of the self, barriers were also set up against the joy of the inner spontaneous self. People felt divorced from the core of their own reality. The concept of original sin was a very poor, limited, and distorted one, but at least along with it went rather simple procedures. Through baptism you might be saved, or through certain words or sacraments or rituals, redemption could be found. The ideal of the tainted subconscious, however, left men no such relatively easy way out. The few rituals possibly required years of analysis, which only the very wealthy were privileged to experience. About the same time that the ideal of the unsavory subconscious arose so strongly, the ideal of the soul went out the window. Millions of people therefore believed in a reality in which they were deprived of the ideal of a soul and burdened by the concept of a very unreliable, if not definitely evil, subconscious. They saw themselves as vulnerable, solitary points of egos, riding perilously and unprotected upon the tumultuous waves of involuntary processes. At about the same time, many intelligent persons were realizing that organized religion's ideas of God and of heaven and hell were distorted, unjust, and smacked of children's fairy tales. For these individuals there was no place to look for help. Under the circumstances, to look within would have seemed foolhardy, for they had been taught that this within contained the source of all their problems to begin with. Those who could not afford therapy tried the harder to inhibit any messages from the inner self, for fear they would become swallowed by the savage infantile emotions. Now, first of all, there are no limitations or divisions to the self, though for purposes of discussion a word like ego may be used here, because you understand what you think it means. You can indeed depend upon seemingly unconscious portions of yourself. As you will see later, you can become more and more consciously aware, therefore, bringing into your consciousness larger and larger portions of yourself. You breathe, grow, and perform multitudinous, delicate, and precise activities constantly, without being consciously aware of how you carry out such manipulations. You live without consciously knowing how you maintain this miracle of physical awareness in the world of flesh and time. The seemingly unconscious portions of yourself draw atoms and molecules from the air to form your image. Your lips move, your tongue speaks your name. Does the name belong to the atoms and the molecules within your lips or tongue? The atoms and molecules move constantly, forming into cells, tissues, and organs. How can the name, the tongue speaks, belong to them? They do not read or write, yet they speak complicated syllables that communicate to other beings such as yourself anything from a simple feeling to the most complicated information. How do they do this? The atoms and molecules of the tongue do not know the syntax of the language they speak. When you begin a sentence, you do not have the slightest conscious idea often of how you will finish it. Yet you take it on faith that the words will make sense and your meaning will flow out effortlessly. All of this happens because the inner portions of your being operate spontaneously, joyfully, freely. All of this occurs because your inner self believes in you, often even while you do not believe in it. These unconscious portions of your being operate amazingly well, frequently, despite the greatest misunderstanding on your part of their nature and function, and in the face of strong interference from you because of your beliefs. Each person experiences a unique reality, different from any other individual's. This reality springs outward from the inner landscape of thoughts, feelings, expectations, and beliefs. If you believe that the inner self works against you rather than for you, then you hamper its functioning, or rather you force it to behave in a certain way because of your beliefs. The conscious mind is meant to make clear judgments about your position in physical reality. Often false beliefs will prevent it from making these, for the egotistically held ideals will cloud its clear vision. Your beliefs can be like fences that surround you. You must first recognize the existence of such barriers. You must see them, or you will not even realize that you are not free, simply because you will not see beyond the fences. They will represent the boundaries of your experience. There is one belief, however, that destroys artificial barriers to perception, an expanding belief that automatically pierces false and inhibiting ideas. Now, separately, right, the self is not limited. That statement is a statement of fact. It exists regardless of your belief or disbelief in it. Following this concept is another. There are no boundaries or separation of the self. Those that you experience are the result of false beliefs. Following this is the idea that I have already mentioned. You make your own reality. To understand yourself and what you are, you can learn to experience yourself directly apart from your beliefs about yourself. What I would like each reader to do is to sit quietly, close your eyes, try to sense within yourself the deep feeling tones that I mentioned earlier. This is not difficult to do. Your knowledge of their existence will help you recognize their deep rhythms within you. Each individual will sense these tones in his or her own way, so do not worry about how they should feel. Simply tell yourself that they exist, that they are composed of the great energies of your being made flesh. Then, let yourself experience. If you are used to terms like meditation, try to forget the term during this procedure. Do not use any name. Free yourself from concepts and experience the being of yourself and the motion of your own vitality. Do not question, is this right? Am I doing it correctly? Am I feeling what I should feel? This is the book's first exercise for you. You are not to use other people's criteria. There are no standards but your own feelings. No particular time limit is recommended. This should be an enjoyable experience. Accept whatever happens as uniquely your own. The exercise will put you in touch with yourself. It will return you to yourself. Whenever you are nervous or upset, take a few moments to sense this feeling tone within you, and you will find yourself centered in your own being, secure. When you have tried this exercise several times, then feel these deep rhythms go out from you in all directions, as indeed they do. Electromagnetically, they radiate out through your physical being, and in ways that I hope to explain later. They form the environment that you know, even as they form your physical image. I told you that the self was not limited, yet surely you think that your step yourself stops where your skin meets space, that you are inside your skin, period. Yet, your environment is an extension of yourself. It is the body of your experience, coalesced in physical form. The inner self forms the objects that you know as surely and automatically as it forms your finger or your eye. Your environment is the physical picture of your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs made visible. Since your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs move through space and time, you therefore affect physical conditions separate from you. Consider the spectacular framework of your body just from the physical standpoint. You perceive it as solid, as you perceive all other physical matter. Yet the more matter is explored, the more obvious it becomes that within it energy takes on specific shape. In the form of organs, cells, molecules, atoms, electrons, each less physical than the last, each combining in mysterious gestate to form matter. The atoms within your body spin. There is constant commotion and activity. The flesh that seems so solid turns out to be composed of swiftly moving particles, often orbiting each other, in which great exchanges of energy continually occur. The stuff, the space outside of your body, is composed of the same elements, but in different proportions. There is a constant physical interchange between the structure you call your body and the space outside it, chemical interactions, basic exchanges without which life as you know it would be impossible. To hold your breath is to die. Breath, which represents the most intimate and most necessary of your physical sensations, must flow out from you, from what you are, passing into the world that seems to be not you. Physically, portions of you leave your body constantly and intermix with the elements. You know what happens when adrenaline is released through the bloodstream. It stirs you up and prepares you for action. But in other ways, the adrenaline does not just stay in your body. It is cast into the air, and it affects the atmosphere, though it is transformed. Any of your emotions liberate hormones, but these also leave you as your breath leaves you, and that in that respect, you can say that you release chemicals into the air that then affect it. Physical storms then are caused by such interactions. I am telling you that you form your own reality once again, and this includes the physical weather, which is the result in mass of your individual reactions. I will elaborate much more specifically on this particular point later in the book. You are in physical existence to learn and understand that your energy, translated into feelings, thoughts, and emotion, cause all experience. There are no exceptions. Once you understand this, you have only to learn to examine the nature of your beliefs, for these will automatically cause you to feel and think in certain fashions. Your emotions follow your beliefs. It is not the other way around. I would like you to recognize your own beliefs in several areas. You must realize that any ideal you accept as truth is a belief that you hold. You must then take the next step and say, it is not necessarily true, even though I believe it. You will, I hope, learn to disregard all beliefs that imply basic limitations. And there's a little talk in between, and pardon the noises that are my grandson in the next room with his friend. Okay, now, later we will discuss some of the reasons for your beliefs, but for now I simply want you to recognize them. I'm going to list some limiting false beliefs. If you find yourself agreeing with any of them, then recognize this is an area in which you must personally work. Number 1, life is a valley of sorrows. 2, the body is inferior As a vehicle of the soul, it is automatically degraded and tinged. You may feel that the flesh is inherently bad or evil, that its appetites are wrong. Christians may find the body deplorable, thinking that the soul descended into it, descent automatically meaning the change from a higher or better condition to one that is worse. Followers of Eastern religions often feel it their duty also to deny the flesh, to rise above it, so to speak, into a state where nothing is desired. Using a different vocabulary, they still believe that earth experience is not desirable in itself. Number 3, I am helpless before circumstances that I cannot control. Number 4, I am helpless because my personality and character were formed in infancy and I'm at the mercy of my past. Number 5, I am helpless because I am at the mercy of events from past lives in other incarnations over which I now have no control. I must be punished, or I am punishing myself, for unkindnesses done to others in past lives. I must accept the negative aspects of my life because of my karma. Number 6, people are basically bad and out to get me. Number 7, I have the truth and no one else has, or my group has the truth and no other group has. Number 8, I will grow frailer, sicker, and lose my powers as I grow old. Number 9, my existence is dependent upon my experience in flesh. When my body dies, my consciousness dies with it. Now, that was a rather general list of false beliefs. Now, here is a more specific list of more intimate beliefs, any of which you may have personally about yourself. I am sickly and always have been. Number 2, there is something wrong with money. People who have it are greedy, less spiritual than those who are poor. They are unhappier and snobs. Number 3, I am not creative. I have no imagination. Next, I can never do what I want to do. Next, people dislike me. Next, I am fat. And then next, I always have bad luck. These are all beliefs held by many people. Those who have them will meet them in experience. Physical data will always seem to reinforce the beliefs, therefore. But the beliefs formed the reality. We are going to attempt to knock down such limiting concepts. First of all, you must realize that no one can change your beliefs for you, nor can they be forced upon you from without. You can indeed change them for yourself, however, with knowledge and application. Look about you. Your entire physical environment is the materialization of your beliefs. Your sense of joy, sorrow, health, or illness, all of these are also caused by your beliefs. If you believe that a given situation should make you unhappy, then it will, and the unhappiness will then reinforce the condition. Within you is the ability to change your ideas about reality and about yourself, to create a personal, living experience that is fulfilling to yourself and others. I would like you to write down your beliefs about yourself as you become aware of them. Later, you can use this list in a way that you do not now suspect. Break or end of session, whatever you prefer. And I will end this right here and begin the next session with the next video.